Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Monday Motivation Spotlight. I'm Lesley Kaplan. For those of you that are regulars, you'll notice that I'm in a different background. So today I'm in Jerusalem, Ira Kodesh. Last night we went to a fabulous Shweki concert at Chotzot HaYotzer. And if you're in Israel, joining us from Israel, I do recommend you go. They didn't pay me to advertise it, but it's a fabulous evening where you can literally just let go, enjoy the atmosphere, and for a couple of hours, just forget about everything that's going on around us. So why do I mention that? Because for those of you that are new or listening to the first time, for the first time, this program, the Monday Motivation Spotlight podcast, was born after October 7th. It started about a week to 10 days later with the aim of inspiring and motivating us, and at the same time, giving exposure to Israeli business owners, nonprofits, and individuals who are making a difference. And at the time of the war, as most of us know, things shut down and Israeli business owners were taking a massive loss. So thank God we've been going for almost 2 years. Not thank God the war has been going, sadly, but the podcast has been going. And B'ezrat Hashem, we hope for it to end soon. And as always, wish the safe return of our hostages and the safety of all our soldiers and our nation. So before I introduce our wonderful guest for the day, I would like to thank, as I always do, our sponsors, with thanks to Egan & Cohen Insurance in Jerusalem, servicing Israel, nationwide, and also foreigners, as well as to Lali's Flower Boutique in Jerusalem. So enough said, I'm going to now be spotlighting and replacing my spotlight with our guest for the day, Yaffa Rosen Grunberg. Yaffa, good morning. I'm delighted to have you here as our guest. We've actually had the privilege of meeting personally as well at different networking events, which is cool that I'm not just meeting you over the screen. So who is Yaffa Rosen Grunberg? Yaffa traded the constraints of corporate life for creative freedom, in her words, when she launched her presentation design studio at home. And now she partners with companies ranging from growing startups to successful organizations, and she transforms the ideas into beautiful, compelling presentations that make a lasting impression. And I've seen from many of her posts and things that she's done, like it's a wow. She does some beautiful stuff. I'd also like to add, if I'm not mistaken, up until now, all our guests on the Monday Motivation Spotlight have been Olim Vatikim, Olim Chadashim, but they weren't born here. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to look back to all our guests, that Yaffa is our first guest that was actually born in Israel to Olim parents. And it's incredible how someone can have such a fabulous English. I know you'll talk about it, that you grew up in an English bubble, as you said, but the fact that you didn't actually live in Chutz La'aretz, not even, I think one day in your life. So welcome, Yaffa. Delighted to have you. And take it away. Share with us what you do.
Well, thank you very much. So I'm Yaffa Rosen Grunberg. I've been married for 18 years, but I've had this name for the last 16 years. I'm still adjusting for it. You want to know what happened the 2 years that I didn't have the name? Well, turns out when you register in Misrad HaDatot, there's a little checkbox that if you don't mark it, you automatically take your husband's name. Now, I was in labor and I went to the hospital and they print out a bracelet and said Yaffa Grunberg. And I'm like, I've never changed my name. Why? It was very confusing for me. So then, I'm not a feminist, but when I was married to my husband, he said, if you are going somewhere and you need to be on time, that means you're 15 minutes early. So he's Dutch. So for them, on time's 15 minutes early. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to be in Grunberg. And right after I left the hospital, I went to Misrad Pnim and I changed it. I'm a Rosen Grunberg. Still working on that. And when I went actually for a business consultant, she said, I need to give my business a name. And she said, it's best to take your full name so people recognize you and your business as one. I'm still working on that. Anyway, so yes, you introduced me as I'm not in Allah. Lesley actually approached me for this and I said, I'm not in Allah. I don't have that type of a story. My parents are the one that made Aliyah. They, after they got married, they came to Israel right away. And when I was 3 years old, we moved to a new upcoming neighborhood called Neve Eliza with only Anglo families moved into there at the time. So I basically grew up in an Anglo bubble. Like you said, all my best friends were American. We always spoke English amongst ourselves at school and at home. And that's, I still, I said, everybody here is, they're Olim. I'm not an Ola. So, but anyways, we said there is some story there, and it's my parents. So, and we just, even now till today, we think it's very important to keep the English in the house. So we speak with our kids, and they also sound like they're Olim, but I mean, they're fully Israeli, like me. So, growing up, I always loved drawing. And in high school, they didn't really have at the time any programs that I felt like I enjoyed school. So my parents found me a school that had an art program. And that's where I was introduced to graphic design. We were, aside from our art classes and art history, we also were creating things on the computer, and that's when I knew that that's what I want to do when I grow up. When I finished school, I naturally went to do Shirut Leumi. I did 2 years. If anybody have heard of Tila organization, maybe you've been on their pilot tour. They came before Nefesh B'Nefesh. So we helped there tutoring the kids and the families, and we did all different tasks to try to help Olim come and make their Aliyah process easier. When I finished my 2 years volunteering, I went to Michel Hadassah, where I learned graphic design and print. Really, really enjoyed my studies there. And my first job out of school was at a signage company. It's very interesting. When you learn graphic design, everybody thinks it's, a magazine or posters, but you don't notice how design is everywhere, from like the little bubblegum wrapper to the huge signs you see in Ayalon. So if you've been to Ariel, you have probably seen the signage that I've made in their municipality. Just, so it's nice, even till today. It's been there for quite a while. And I've took part in other projects like the Sami Ofer Stadium in Haifa and Honda car dealerships and various hotels and malls and museums. I've also worked for branding agencies where we did other various projects for companies like HP and Amdocs and Bar Ilan, Teva, and many other companies. But, balancing a full-time job with kids has its challenges. And I was very fortunate that I had my parents live down the block, that they would give a hand with the kids. And I have my in-laws that live not far in Ranana, and they would help when the kids were sick also. But juggling a full-time job, and, the kids growing up, they start having, more needs that you need to be available for therapies and appointments and stuff. It kind of like made me think that I need to step back and rethink my career path to be more available. So it was very scary deciding, to leave the certainty of an employee and step into a freelancer shoes. But it seemed just that at that time, it was like, you need to try to give yourself the time and the balance to be able to juggle everything that you have going on. 1 second.
So how many years ago was it that you started your own business then?
So it started like slowly, I'd say, COVID kind of like shifted all your time. You have like no sense of time. So I think it's been already like 7 years, I think, that
Right.
I said I need to take a break, step aside, and try to rethink. And then things happened. I started working for a designer, and I was there for about a year part-time, and suddenly COVID hit. And then all the companies were stopping that nobody was putting any funding into marketing. Nobody knew what was going on. It was kind of like the world came to a halt of some sort. And luckily I had also a US based client that they were able to keep on generating me work. But like in Israel, I don't know what happened in the whole world. Like I know specifically there were things that were like going on total freeze. And luckily, this US company was still had stuff that they needed constant design for. So I was kind of lucky to have that. And like at that time, I was in Osek Patur or Osek Zaire. Like I opened up a boutique and I was, but like things keep on shifting, you know, and then suddenly they don't have work. So it's like, okay, I need to rethink what I'm doing. How do you start finding more clients? And then I went to Ma'of. Ma'of, you know, they
Which is great. It's great for giving assistance to business owners, whether it's
right,
one-on-one or also they have workshops there.
they have workshops that have reduced subsidized courses, and they have also the yi'utz that they give you if you need help, like how to keep on generating your company. And that's where my name, Yaffa Rosen Grunberg Presentation Design Studio, came from. I think after
Right.
3 years with
Absolutely.
them.
You know, someone who deals with branding, that's super important that people get to know your name. And there's different, you know, stories behind it, whether to go with the company name or to use your name. That's not for right now, but for you, I
Right.
think that that's the right decision, definitely.
Right. So like, I mean, somebody says like, why don't you just do YRG? My head. I'm like, but then they don't know who you are, you know, but to say Yaffa Rosen Grunberg, I feel like I'm out of breath by the time I finish saying it. It's a
Right.
complex
There are
thing.
pros and cons. Look, with anything in business, as we know, being a business owner is not for everyone. But the fact that when you start and have to make the decision about your company name and then moving forward, and people often do rebrand with different things, but when you're one person, depends on what impression you want to create when you're creating a business with the name.
Right. So once like I kind of like I did the Ma'of type, you know, I did their social media and I did their LinkedIn, and then suddenly you start, you know, putting yourself out there and needing to post, and and going to the networking events, you know, that's where you meet people and people hear about you, and then they refer people they know or think might need your help. And I actually got an amazing client that way. You know, he was a startup. He needed somebody to work on his decks for to get investors. And after a year plus, and we did a few projects, he got like a substantial backing. It was like crazy. It's money like I wouldn't even think of. He got an investor that would back him for up to $20 billion. Like,
So share a bit about that with us, because it's super important. As you know, when people, what are the reasons that people would use your services, and share some interesting stories about things that you've done, some of your clients, that it's actually
okay,
made a difference, that they've got the deal because the presentation looked good.
right. So I'll tell you, I mean, it's getting tricky nowadays because people are kind of going into AI and just enjoying that, you know, which is good. But I would say if you have okay, so there are two type of clients. I have a client that has already a brand, you know, and they need to work within the guidelines that they were given so that any material that goes out of the company looks consistent. You know, you see Coca-Cola, you know Coca-Cola, it's there, it's everywhere. So if you have a brand, you need to stick to it. You need to stick to the colors and the fonts and the look and feel. And that's where I come in to work with their materials, because AI is not doing that. AI is not keeping to the look and feel. AI is just giving you random, maybe working in your colors, but not the look and feel. And there are also clients that I have that sometimes they just need something to look right. You know, you pour all your content into your presentation, but you didn't notice the alignment. You didn't notice that things are jumping around. You don't notice the font changes maybe, or you didn't put the right images. And you don't always have the time. Sometimes you don't have the eye or you don't have the time because, you know, like if you're a accountant, you're very good at what you do, but you're not good at your design. You don't have the design skills. So I have clients like that just come to me and just to make things look professional. You want to get an investor, you want to make a sale, you need your stuff to look presentable. I like using the analogy that think as if you're going into a date, okay? And you show up with your sweats and, you know, the spit up from your kid or something. You won't be taken seriously. Yeah, you don't go to a Michelin star restaurant and eat on khat pami. So the first impression is really what matters. So you could have everything out there properly, but it needs to look right the first second in order to be taken seriously. Actually, one of my clients said that, 1 second, I'll find exactly what he wrote. He said that the investors specifically commented on how professional it looked instantly. Sorry, something here is wrong with my wording.
Whenever we get the message, how professional it looked instantly. Right. And
Right.
I've seen anyone has to look at your social media, and I love the videos that you do and the images that you do, and it really looks awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. He also said that the design looks like serious players and not two guys out of a garage. Like it needs, if you want somebody to take you seriously, you need to catch their attention that the first 2 seconds. Sometimes investors get piles of decks, so many people want their money. You need to stand out. You need to look like you want to be taken seriously. And that's like one. So I do have clients also that come with nothing. They have no design. They just have all the content. And I am there. I give them a few design options. They choose what, they prefer. Obviously, the design goes according to whatever the niche is and what they want to purvey, what they want to show, how they want to feel. And I work with them in that. So I kind of like, I also work with high-tech companies, and I also work with people that come with nothing, which is I really like it. I like getting the diversity. I like the challenges. I like, having to work with, I like following rules. So I like when I have the guides, but I also like when I could create the guides and, take the client on my design spree. Yeah.
I fully agree. And I think one of the nice things about your profession, there are other professions like that, but with many professions, so we can do something and make an impact, but you don't always feel it right away. With you, it's visual and you can see it right away. That's the big difference.
You could see it right away, but like I said, like this client that ended up getting this ginormous backing, it started off as, I think halfway down the line, he told me that he potentially found an investor for was like 150 million. And
Wow.
then a few months later, he got a backing of 20 billion. And I was like, I had to kind of like understand what that even means. It means that that company has the funding to give him as long as he, gives him the right projects.
Right,
And that's
right.
like,
Well, that's incredible. That's
so
incredible. And it started with the impression that your work had allowed him to provide.
right. Later on, I actually found out he told me that there were a few people and he chose me. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. And this was like when I started off at taking the presentation niche, because before that, I was doing like a variety of different graphic design works, which I still take on today if, it depends on the client and what they need. I've done, like white papers, and I've done ebooks, and sometimes, high tech have overflow, and I'm like, that's where I come in. You have overflow, or your designer Biduk's going on Chofesh when suddenly you need this ebook came in and you need it in 2 weeks. I'm there, to support, because working within graphic guidelines, any business guideline, it's very structured. You have like it's clear and understandable, and you could just follow it. It's like, I don't know, building an IKEA. I mean, it's not, but you got the instructions. You just got to know how to keep on the
Right.
design.
Would you say that the majority of your work is with companies or also many solopreneurs and עצמאים, individual business
It
owners?
depends on the time of year, really. It fluctuates. There's no, sometimes they all come at once. And sometimes you only have one. It's really, there's no rules. And unfortunately with, the war, the 7th of October also kind of like shifted everything again. And also then, like when the war broke out, so I offered free services for struggling businesses, and I've done work for soldiers that needed anything that came out that somebody needed, if it was a fundraiser for a fallen soldier that they needed for a campaign, or I had a platoon now that actually, I told them all my kids wanted, wait, 1 second, there we go.
Yeah, keep it up for a second. I want to try get an image.
Okay, 1 second, I see it's crooked.
It's not that clear, actually. No, if you take it back a bit, actually. Yeah, there we go. Keep it there.
I feel like it's crooked, 1 second.
Okay. Doesn't matter, but the angle we don't always see. Okay, we can see it. Cool.
Yeah. So somebody posted, they're like, is there a graphic design to help Chayal? I'm like, sure, tell me what you need. So he's like, listen, we have our semel, but we want a patch. And we actually went through a few. He was like, this looks so, I don't want it. I want something else. I gave him something else. And he was like, oh, but the, higher up said, no, it has to be that. And I was like, okay, whatever, just. And now we're working already on like a third one. I said, all my kids want is the patch. Like, I don't need anything. Just, it's the fun little stuff.
Right, the additional parts, like the pro bono kind of stuff that make you feel good. We have
Right.
actually one question. What advice would you give to solopreneurs in terms of tips, in terms of design or branding, besides saying use me? Okay, what advice do you have? Any one or two tips that you would give to people?
So in terms of branding, that's really a sector that I try not going into.
Yeah, or design, let's say
But in
design.
design, I think you need to be consistent. Like find your colors and find the vibe and what what your message is trying to be and stick to it. Be consistent. You got to be consistent because this way you will be recognizable. What happened to your camera, Les? Okay. That's really what matters. And yes, if you have a design, have other people look at it, let them give you comments, see that it's readable. Sometimes people do like yellow on red or something like that, and people can't see it. It doesn't look good. If you love something, you should still ask for other people to give you their opinions, so you kind of like understand what other people see.
Right. And I've seen also like play around with different colors because, as you say, sometimes people put a dark and a dark and it's not that readable. We see it also not only in presentations, but in many printed ads as well. And also one other thing I'd think, which I'm sure you would recommend too, is the print size. Sometimes, to play around, but not too small. I think 28 is considered the smallest that one should do it, right? Or do you sometimes say less?
I find, well,
Depends
I
on how,
find it
what you're
depends on
putting
the
in.
font. I mean, if you're doing a presentation, you want to minimize the amount of wording. If you're physically presenting, you want to have a minimal amount of words on your slide because you want people listening. If you
Right.
have a lot of words there, people are busy reading. I was actually a few months ago at a lecture, Rabbi Hammer. He has Gila's Way. I was
Mhm.
sitting in his lecture and I was just like constraining myself to try to read what he put on his presentation and listen to him. He had too many words going on there. I mean, at the end of, I actually went up to him and I redesigned his presentation. I hope, but I don't know if he's using, but I said, I suggested a new layout. So if you have so many words, you gotta, condense it to the most crucial ones. So it resonates, 3 words. And you could split up the slides. If you have a table of like 5 different pros and cons, then do 1 slide per pro and con, or do 1 pro, 1 con. Like you want people to listen when you're giving a lecture. That's the bottom line. You can't listen and read. Most people can't, at least, at the same time.
At the same time, right? Or instead of squishing everything onto one slide, to maybe
Spread it
separate
out.
it into 2 and 3, just to make
Right.
it, not overwhelming with the reading.
Right.
Right,
Spread it out.
absolutely. Do you do this all yourself or do you outsource to other designers? An
For the most
overload?
part, I do it all myself. One day, hopefully in the future, I would be able to outsource. But I would actually first outsource my social media.
Right. That's an important thing to discuss in terms of we all know what our strengths are and what we enjoy doing. And that's what you've touched on now is actually super important. Let's talk a little bit about that as a business owner, having to have so many different hats. And if we feel we need to outsource, how we choose what we want to do first.
So it's tricky. I do find myself struggling. There are times if I'm deep into projects, I find that I've neglected my social media hat. I've been told, and I'm still trying to get to it, that once a month you take a day and you just fill your whole month of content, and then you just, schedule post everything. I haven't gotten to that. I know that's like the way to do it, but work in progress.
Right, right. No, but it's good that you know where your skills are and strengths are and what you would outsource first. So for the next minute or two that we have left, share with us what your dreams are for the future, your vision for the future, personal, professional. Where can we see Yaffa? What are you looking for in the next 3 to 5 years, let's say?
Wow. Um,
That was
so
throwing you on the spot. I didn't prepare you with that before.
yeah, my vision for 3 to 5 years is to still be able to do my presentation design. I'm sure in the near future it's going to be more AI, but AI I think is just going to be there as the stepping stone to elevate it, because you still need the person looking at it. And have more time, to travel the world potentially and have somebody else run my business.
Right. Well, actually, seeing you do this all online, you could travel the world and take your business with you.
That is true, but I'm so used to having a big screen. I spoil myself with the 27-inch. It's hard. I could work on my small, on the laptop, but I just prefer my big screen. So, but you're right. I could travel and work online.
Right, that's the thing. For when you're used to doing all your work on the computer. For me too, for example, I'm doing this now from my laptop because, as I
Oh,
said, I'm not in my
one
regular
second,
place.
Leslie. I forgot to share my. I have 2 links
All
to
right,
share my
good. Sure.
PowerPoint.
Yeah, sure. Have a look. See if we can see anything just before we log off.
Okay, let's
I'm going to
see.
remove my spotlight.
You see it?
Yeah, we can see it. So for those of you that are watching, you can see it. You can see some
Okay.
of Yaffa's images.
Yeah, I
Give
forgot.
us a
Here,
shoot just through a couple of images
yeah. Where I
that we
put
can see.
see some project. This is like a before after of just, a quick turnaround for a layout. Make
Mm-hmm.
it look consistent.
Right, we can see what a difference already. It's bright, it's colorful, it's professional,
Yeah,
images, graphs, whatever you want to do.
yeah.
Right. All right, fabulous. No, it's good that you gave us a taste of that towards the end. All right, Yaffa, wow, thank you so much. Let me try find my spotlight here to come up next to you. Okay, thank you so much for being our guest today on the Monday Motivation Spotlight. It's been fabulous having you. I'm glad that I've gotten to see some of your images. As I say, if you want to catch Yaffa, what's the best way to reach you? On social media, do you want to give an email?
They could, yeah, sure. It's yaffa@yaffarosen.com.
All right, great. And you're on social media, all the different channels,
Yes, look
LinkedIn.
up Yaffa Rosen Grunberg. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and kind of Instagram. And you can find on my website also, yaffarosen.com has, you could contact me directly through there.
Right. Okay. Amazing. Thank you so much. As I say, this aim and the aim of the spotlight and the entire podcast was, besides to inspire and motivate us and give us ideas as business owners, was to support business owners, to give them exposure. So here we go. We've had another wonderful business owner who decided to take the route or the plunge or whatever you want to call it, from being an employee to a business owner. So wishing you much hatzlacha in the future, Yaffa. And I also look forward to seeing you, at future events, in-person events, as well as online. Thank you all for joining the edition today of the Monday Motivation Spotlight. I'm Lesley Kaplan. You can re-listen to this on my YouTube and Spotify channels. And if you enjoyed this today, please go to the channels and subscribe, and you can hear other amazing speakers too. And it's totally inspiring. Some of them are nonprofits, to hear what people are doing and see what they're doing. Thanks again to our sponsors, to Eggert & Cohen Insurance, and also to Lali's Flower Boutique in Jerusalem. And thank you to you for watching and for joining, and to you, Yaffa. And for all of our viewers, whether you join us live, which is always fabulous, we have a bunch of regulars and new people that come every time. So thank you, as well as to those on that are watching the recording. And put it in your calendar every Monday from 9 to 9:30 Israel time. It's 30 minutes. Block it out. It'll inspire you for the day. You can join with camera on and off, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you again, Yaffa. Am
Thank you very
Yisrael.
much.
Bye. May we have a good, quiet, safe week for Am Yisrael.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Bye.
Bye.